Hume. Senator Paterson.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President, and I warmly welcome the opportunity to contribute to this important debate on an important piece of legislation being put forward by the Turnbull government. After decades of advertising, education and taxes, every Australian now knows that cigarettes are bad for your health. It would be hard not to realise that, given the mountain of effort being put in by governments around the world, but particularly in Australia, on educating people about those risks. Personally, I have never been a fan of smoking, whether it is cigarettes, cigars, cigarillos or any other smoking product. They just don't agree with me. I've never been able to bear smoking myself, but I do recognise that there are other people who do smoke and enjoy it, and I'll come to that later. My late Nan was a very heavy smoker for many years, and late in her life she suffered emphysema as a result of her smoking. And I have to say it was not a very pretty thing to watch. It was very sad to see her health decline as a direct result of decisions that she made during her life. So I'm not sad, and I don't think anyone in Australia would be sad to see the continuing decline of smoking as a habit. That is something which I think we should all welcome. The adult daily smoking rate in 2014-15 was 14.5%, and while that is still a high figure, it is certainly a dramatic improvement from the figures only a few decades ago. And COAG has agreed to a bipartisan intergovernmental target of 10%. And I think that's a reasonable target, though I'm sure all Australians would hope that in due course there will be no Australians who choose to smoke. The excise on a packet of cigarettes today is about 2/3 of the total value of a packet of cigarettes. Today, a packet of 25 cigarettes retails for about $25, and of those $25, about $15 consist of excise, which is collected by the government. This measure proposed by the government will only increase the proportion of a packet of cigarettes that is collected by the government, and it is somewhat ironic that in many ways it could be argued that the government actually profits from the sale of cigarettes more than tobacco companies do from the sale of cigarettes. But given this, I think it is vitally important that the government take complementary action at the same time to combat illicit tobacco. When we charge an extra dollar of excise, we increase the incentive of people to buy, to sell and to traffic in illicit tobacco, which by its very nature avoids excise. Illicit tobacco is a serious problem around the world, and it is a serious problem in Australia. A report by KPMG this year estimated that the lost revenue alone to government from the illicit trade is more than $1 billion per year. From a public policy standpoint, that is obviously a very serious problem, but it is not the only problem from illicit tobacco. Illicit tobacco also fuels criminal behaviour, including organised crime, bikie gangs and international criminal syndicates. It hurts law-abiding small businesses who find it very difficult to compete with people who are able to charge much lower prices for illegal products because they choose not to charge excise as they should be. And actually the quality of the illicit product, such as you can measure the quality of a tobacco product, but the quality is vastly inferior to the quality of a legal product, and even worse for human health than legal tobacco products. Now, predominantly the illegal tobacco that we have in this country is now imported. It is mostly sourced from overseas and is mostly smuggled into Australia using various means. However, there is still, as there has been for some time in this country, a legal tobacco growing domestic industry, as was reported in the Herald Sun in April this year. There was a raid by the Australian Taxation Office, as reported by Rob Harris in April in the Herald Sun, where a record of $15.4 million worth of illegal tobacco was growing at a northern Victorian farm and was seized by the ATO. A community tip-off led to the ATO raid, and in what they described as a large and sophisticated growing and processing operation near Kerrang in Victoria. This tobacco that was seized amounted to a quantity of about 30 million cigarettes. This is just from one farm in one area in northern Victoria. And it demonstrates the strength of the illegal tobacco industry here in Australia and the importance of cracking down on it. This government takes the threat of illicit tobacco very seriously, and it's why we established the Tobacco Strike Team to crack down particularly on that imported tobacco with the Australian Border Force, and it's why the ATO continues to investigate, raid and crack down on domestic growing of illegal tobacco. In the latest budget, as a complementary measure to this bill which we're discussing today, the government announced that it would provide an extra $7.7 million for the Tobacco Strike Team to help crack down on this illicit tobacco. I want to make two wider points, though, about this debate and this policy. Ultimately, tobacco is a legal product in Australia, and although I strongly disapprove of it, and although I strongly encourage people to not start smoking in the first place, and if they are smoking today, I strongly encourage them to quit smoking, ultimately I think we have to accept that there will be some people who, even understanding the very serious risks of smoking, still choose to smoke. And in a free society, people must be able to make decisions which we disapprove of, as much as we counsel them against it. While ever we decide that tobacco remains a legal product, and I'm not aware of any proposals, at least before this chamber, to make it illegal, we have to accept that some people are going to smoke, and that is their choice. Given that there are people who still do choose to smoke, given people who, understanding the risks, still think it's worthwhile and something that they enjoy, or because they're addicted they have a difficulty giving it up, this brings me to my second point, is that there are two potential solutions to this problem. The first is the government-driven approach. This is something which has been used quite effectively in Australia over the last 30 to 40 years to significantly reduce the rate of smoking. And there's no doubt there's been great success in this area. We have used quite high levels of taxation. We have used taxpayer-funded advertising. We have used education in the community, and particularly through our schools, to educate people about the dangers of smoking and encourage them to quit. And the result of that has been a significant reduction in the rate of smoking. What we've noticed, though, in recent years, particularly over the last decade, is that the rate of reduction of smoking has begun to plateau. As we get down to the more hardcore smokers who are committed, who understand the risks, who bear the cost and continue to smoke. And that's why the government has, in a bipartisan way, considered some other more exotic measures to address this, such as plain packaging of tobacco products, as a way of getting through that barrier and further reducing smoking. And it's why this government has decided to further increase excise. And that certainly has been an effective approach, and I'll be supporting this bill for that reason. However, I think it's important that while we support these measures, we acknowledge that there are some drawbacks for these measures. I'm concerned, as I know many Australians are generally, about property rights in this country and the need and the importance of protecting those property rights. And I think that property rights are not just confined to physical land and property, and that the seizure of that by government should be protected by our constitution and our courts, but also that intellectual property is property, and that also should be protected. And we should be aware that the plain packaging legislation and the High Court decision that followed effectively removed the ability for companies to use a property right which they created, and we should be mindful of the limitations of that. We may still decide that it's a worthwhile thing, but we should be aware of the costs of that. The second thing which I think we have to be particularly aware of in the taxation space is that excise taxes on products like tobacco, but not only tobacco, including alcohol as well, disproportionately affects lower income people. These are taxes which are not levied according to their ability to pay, not levied according to income or wealth or any other measure. They are levied according to a lifestyle choice which people make to smoke or, in other cases, to drink. And the evidence shows that lower income earners disproportionately still choose to smoke. So when we increase these taxes, we're in effect increasing what is a regressive tax. And I know when we debate other taxation measures in this place, some people who favour an increase in the GST, I'm not one of them, but some people who do, have come up against resistance that it would be regressive and it would impact the poor less. Well, the GST at least applies relatively equally to everyone, but actually tobacco excises play disproportionately to the poor. And that's something that I think we need to be very conscious of. The second thing is we are running into the limitations of the approach that we've taken over the last 30 to 40 years. We have reduced it dramatically, but the rate of reduction has started to slow. And that means I think we should start to look at wider measures and other measures to address this. One which I think we should consider is a more free market option, a more free market approach. That is using choices that people are already making in their lives, enabling them to make those choices that are healthier choices, that are healthier than smoking conventional cigarettes. And in this area we have a range of new products technology has brought to us, including e-cigarettes and other forms of smoking, sometimes called reduced risk products, which use technology to reduce the impact of tobacco smoke, and particularly the burning of tobacco, which is very toxic to inhale. This is a free market approach because it doesn't rely on mandates, it doesn't rely on taxes, it relies on choices. And in Australia right now it is not lawful to sell e-cigarette products, but there are many people who have chosen to take up these products because they prefer them to cigarettes, or as a measure of reducing their reliance on cigarettes, or just as something which is more convenient than cigarettes. That's even with them not being lawful. I think we have to look at very seriously whether or not we should legalise these products, and there is an application, I understand, before the Therapeutic Goods Administration right now to legalise an e-cigarette style product as a tobacco cessation measure, as a measure to get people off tobacco. And I think that would be a very good thing. So I just wanted to summarise some of the research and standing and views on this issue. It's fair to say that the public health lobby in Australia is not supportive of e-cigarettes. They are very sceptical about them. People such as Mr Simon Chapman, a noted sociologist and advocate of tobacco control, has been very much opposed to allowing e-cigarettes to be legalised, as have bodies such as Quit Victoria, who last year called for e-cigarettes to be clarified to be illegal, to ban the retail sale of them in Victoria. Interestingly, to extend smoke-free laws to cover all e-cigarette use. That's an interesting one, given that what is emitted from an e-cigarette is water vapour. We should be concerned about second-hand smoke. That is an issue. You can get cancer from second-hand smoke. That is what the science suggests. You can't get second-hand smoke from e-cigarette water vapour, though. So you can't get cancer from that. There's no evidence of that. So it does seem strange to me that we would apply laws designed to limit second-hand smoke cancer from conventional burning of tobacco from a water vapour which carries no tobacco at all. In fact, it only delivers nicotine to the user. It doesn't even deliver it into the atmosphere around them. And thirdly, to ban advertising and the promotion of e-cigarettes. Again, I understand perhaps the rationale behind this, but one of the limitations of banning advertising is that advertising is information. It allows people to learn about new products, and it would allow, for example, retailers of e-cigarettes to notify current smokers that they may be able to reduce the risk to their health and reduce the harm to their health by switching from cigarettes to e-cigarettes. So that's Quit Victoria's position. The Heart Foundation in the ACT is also opposed. They have lobbied to make sure that it's more strictly banned than it is and to prevent it. I think that's broadly representative. The Cancer Council of Australia has issued concerns. Professor Ian Oliver, writing for the Cancer Council's website, said that there is not sufficient evidence that electronic cigarettes would help smokers to quit. And there's also concerns that electronic cigarettes could keep smokers addicted to tobacco by providing a nicotine hit in smoke-free places. They're also concerned that e-cigarettes may, in the words of some, normalise the use of cigarettes. I'm not sure that there's sufficient evidence to back that up, but that is the view of some in the public health industry. But I have to say, one of the puzzling reasons for opposing the sale of e-cigarettes put forward by Professor Ian Oliver is that it might allow tobacco companies to continue to be profitable and to continue to exist. I think that's a very strange reason when our focus should be on public health. I think actually it would be a good thing if cigarette companies got rid of their old products and moved towards newer products which are healthier and safer, and may still have some risk, but I think certainly pose less of a risk than cigarettes. I think that would be a very welcome development, but some people are opposed to the continuation, allowing these products to be legal, because it would continue cigarette companies' profitability and allow them to continue to exist. The Australian government, I think it's fair to say, has taken a generally sceptical approach to e-cigarettes. The TGA issued in March last year some preliminary commentary on e-cigarettes. They described them in their technical detail and how they work, and they said that at the moment there is not a great deal of evidence to support their use, certainly as a nicotine replacement therapy. But since that time, and since the government issued that view, I think there has been a development of the evidence base in this area, and I'm encouraged by the developments. As the National Health and Medical Research Council in Australia has said, there is a widely held belief that e-cigarettes are likely to be less harmful than tobacco cigarettes because they expose users to fewer toxic chemicals. They say that there is some preliminary evidence which supports that view. So I think it would be fair to describe the NHMRC as cautiously open to the potential benefits of e-cigarettes, although, as I said, the Australian government's position is generally sceptical about the introduction of e-cigarettes. I want to refer to an excellent article written by my former colleague at the great organisation Institute of Public Affairs, Simon Breeny. It was in March last year in the Daily Telegraph, and he reviewed some of the evidence available at that time on this. And he cited one article published in August 2014 in the peer-reviewed Journal of Public Health. And what the journal concluded was that the use of e-cigarettes can reduce the number of cigarettes smoked and withdrawal symptoms. In an article for BMC Medicine last year, Peter Hadchek of the Wolferson Institute for Preventive Medicine said, although there is no doubt that smokers switching to electronic cigarettes substantially reduce the risks to their health, some tobacco control activists and health organisations discourage smokers from using e-cigarettes and lobby policymakers to reduce e-cigarette use by draconian regulation. One thing which I think is becoming increasingly clear is that Australia is getting out of step with the rest of the world on this, particularly the United Kingdom, who've been quite forward-looking on this issue and have been much more willing, and the public health community particularly much more willing to contemplate this. In Public Health England, which is a government body, has said, in a nutshell, the best estimates show that e-cigarettes are 95% less harmful to your health than normal cigarettes, and when supported by smoking cessation services, help most smokers to quit tobacco altogether. The UK Royal College of Physicians has made a statement on this, and they say the RCP recognises that electronic cigarettes and other novel nicotine devices can provide an effective, affordable and readily available alternative to conventional cigarettes. These innovations could make harm reduction a reality for smokers, as proposed in our 2007 report. There are other reports on this, a lot of academic reports that are now suggesting that in the UK in particular, people have begun to take up e-cigarettes as an alternative to smoking, that they have reduced their reliance on conventional cigarettes, and I think that's a really good thing. And pleasingly, there is also now evidence in Australia that this may be the case. Even though in Australia it is not currently legal to smoke e-cigarettes, to sell or to buy them, some people have imported them from overseas in a personal capacity and smoked them here. And in a survey conducted, a joint research paper by the Australian Catholic University and the University of Melbourne in 2015, they did a survey of 1,242 smokers. 18% of those smokers had reported that they had already given up smoking by using e-cigarettes, and it was also helping those who continued to smoke to cut back on the number of cigarettes they smoked. As Dr Aziz Rahman, the lead researcher, said, e-cigarettes are becoming an increasingly popular method for giving up smoking, especially for middle-aged smokers. As cigarettes contain more than 4,000 toxic chemicals and cancer-causing agents, e-cigarettes are a better choice in terms of a harm reduction strategy. If the safety of e-cigarettes is proven in the long run, they may assist healthcare providers to address smoking cessation challenges more effectively. I think this is a very encouraging area of development. I think we could, in our lifetime, see the end of conventional cigarette smoking and tobacco smoking, and it could be replaced by a much safer alternative of e-cigarettes. And I think that's a really welcome development. And I hope that the governments in Australia will be welcoming of that development and will help facilitate that development rather than block that development, as some in the public health community have lobbied for them to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paterson.